All right, the question is, why are those in the Trump world floating so many different tariff ideas, and what are the implications for the market and for President-elect Trump? Joining us now to break it all down is our Washington correspondent, Ben Werschkul. And Ben, it's great to have you here. I guess, what is your assessment of these developments that we're getting on global tariffs and the possibility that we could see gradual implementation of them?
For sure, yeah. As you mentioned at the top, this is kind of the latest report here, and it's been kind of a choose your own adventure over the last 8 days. We've seen 3 different ideas that are floated. They're not in direct conflict with each other, but it's sort of evidence of a really rollicking debate going on inside Trump world right now. And to me, it's also evidence that there's no plan that can kind of span 2 competing impulses within Trump world. One side is Trump himself, who all evidence shows wants to go big on tariffs, wants to go heavy on tariffs and dramatic, even on day one. And he's given signs he's planning to do that. And then also these market reactions you're seeing. Today's report obviously is getting a more positive market reaction, but we had one last week of just a simple economic emergency, which had the opposite reaction. Another reaction this morning is from Signum. Andrew Bishop there at Signum had a good point, which is that this latest plan, this gradual tariffs, is kind of in the middle and perhaps unsatisfactory to both sides. It doesn't sort of accomplish the big dramatic move that Trump is clearly going to want, and as you noticed, it apparently hasn't been presented to Trump himself yet. So we'll see what he actually thinks of this idea. But on the other side, it does still have big tariffs coming in, just more slowly. So if you're a market, you're forward-looking. Does this actually mitigate any of your concerns? That's all being sort of hashed out right now. And then with the X factor being Trump himself, who repeatedly talks again and again about how he wants tariffs for tariff's sake. He had a press conference last week where he talked about he didn't want tariffs as a negotiating point. He wanted them to bring manufacturing to the U.S. That's his position. And the one thing he's pushed back on in these reports is a report about paring back. He said, "I'm not paring back my tariffs. It's going to be big. That's wrong." So what he actually does, we'll see. All these competing pressures on him, but it's a lot of push and pull on either side for sure.
Yeah, Ben, it's so interesting. And even as you were mentioning, and the reminder that just a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the risk or reality that Trump might declare a national economic emergency in order to move forward with these tariffs. And we put the question to Stephanie Roth of Wolf Research, who essentially we asked, is there anything in the data right now that actually suggests that we're in an economic emergency outside of us going crazy over the price of eggs from time to time?
Right.
And she said, no, there's nothing in the data. This is more strategic right now. And so what do you best extrapolate from what we're hearing about the incoming administration about what the real strategy is and where, in which regions of the world it's set to rattle or ruffle the most feathers?
Yeah. So first off, on the kind of the economic emergency question, my sense from talking to experts as well is that an economic emergency is kind of in the eye of the beholder, and being the president specifically. So the way the law is written is that the president can declare an emergency and just say it's an emergency, and that is kind of the end of that question. And then there's possible legal challenges, but if the president says it's an emergency, it's kind of declared of that. In terms of where it's going to impact, we're also getting a lot of mixed signals of there. Going into the election, Canada tariffs was not a big topic of conversation, but it's something Trump returns to repeatedly again and again about going after tariffs. He recently talked about tariffing Greenland. The big one, obviously, I think that'll be throughout his term is China. He's promised 60% tariffs on China. He's threatened new tariffs since his election, and so that's going to be the big one that I think he'll return to again and again, even after day one.
Ben, just really quickly while we have you, the Department of Government Efficiency, it seems like they're also kind of backing off exactly how strict or how they can actually get towards some of the targets they've actually put forward here. And we've heard this from Elon Musk even saying this is going to be harder to do than they initially planned. What's kind of knocking around within the inner workings of the incoming administration on that front?
Yeah. So this is a subject I wrote about this morning in terms of kind of you see this with a lot of incoming presidents where the campaign trail rhetoric doesn't quite match up with what the reality they face. Trade is an example of this, and then DOGE, as you mentioned. During the campaign, Elon Musk promised at least $2 trillion in cuts. That raised a lot of eyebrows because the entire U.S. discretionary budget is $1.7 trillion. So we would have to be cutting into things like Medicaid and Social Security. But Musk is already backtracking on that and talking about how $2 trillion is the upper limit and $1 trillion may be more likely. This is a pattern we're seeing across a range of issues. The deficit, Ukraine is one. Trump promised to have a single phone call and end the Ukraine war. That war doesn't look to be ending anytime soon. And a range of issues like this, where the kind of actual reality is hitting Trump as it has most presidents when they come in.
Ben, thanks so much for taking the time here with us. Top of the
Sure
show
thing.
this
Good luck to
morning.
you guys.
Appreciate it.